All right, and we are live with another episode of Mentor Minutes. This is your opportunity and leaders from around the world's opportunity to ask me questions, and we can have a discussion about any questions, concerns, struggles that you're dealing with this week, next week, or in leadership in general. So what I like to do is we're queuing up some people onto the live feed here, is to handle some questions I didn't get a chance to get to in my last episode, ones that fell in afterwards, people that are watching the replay that had some questions, and people who have asked me questions directly. The first one is a really good one, and it has it's a situation where the employee has been with the company for about 20 years, thinks that they know everything, hasn't been promoted, wants to move into that next level, but obviously their performance isn't up to snuff. And so how I like to round these out. Deep, good to see you here. And as people tune in, if you have any questions, drop them down into the comment section and let me know where you're tuning in from. It's always nice to see where people are tuning in from. I'm doing great today, Deep. The situation is you have trouble motivating that know-it-all employee who's been with the company for a while. And so I want to broaden this out to a larger audience. You may not relate to this specific situation, but it is a situation that comes up a lot of time when you do have tenured employees who've been there for a long time, have a lot of experience, aren't moving up in the organization, but would like to. And what you want to do in those cases is you want to engage that experience. So that's my big advice on this. If you have a person who feels like they know it all and wants to move up, but doesn't have the credentials, shall we say, to do so, engage that experience. Get in touch, get with them and get in touch with what the expectations are. What specific metrics should they be hitting on a regular basis? Get clear on it. We all have those employees who think that they are the best employee that we possibly could have, and really their performance doesn't match that at all. But they're ignorant to that because we haven't shown them as leaders where their performance lies as far as that graduated scale. That's why one of my favorite things to do is take what's most important to your organization, whatever metric that is, sales, orders processed, that's what calls answered, whatever it happens to be, and post it up on the board, post the performance up on the board. It's eye-opening for people. It may be that this individual who thinks they know it all and thinks they would be perfect for a promotion would be surprised to know that they don't actually meet the basic expectations. So you open up that conversation with them about what the expectations are. Then start talking about what you would need to see to have them move on in the organization and move up in the organization. What traits would you like to see? And that's going to help them, again, open their eyes and start addressing those particular things. And then one of the big things to do, once you've had this conversation, and again, we're talking about an experienced employee who thinks they know it all, who wants to move up in the organization but keeps getting passed up for promotions, you motivate them by getting them engaged with yourself, talking about expectations, and then look for opportunities for them to train specific aspects of it to other people. One of the most important things that we do as leaders is train our employees. That's one of the most important things that supervisors do, is train the employees on meeting and exceeding the expectations that the organization sets. So get them some exposure. This is great leadership exposure. And for all of those people out there that are looking for their first leadership job and don't think that they have any experience, I always ask, have you trained people in your job right now? Have you handled a special project? Those are leadership traits. So get them in a role as a supervisor in a non-official capacity and give them some of that experience. And I think that will be one of those things where you're able to motivate them, and it's one of those put up or shut up sort of things. It may be that they don't step up to the plate, but you've given them that opportunity to. So great question. The other question is, and I have a few to get to here, but I want to queue up some questions here so we keep the flow going here. So if you have some questions, drop them down into the comment section. The next one came in through a private message on Facebook, and this person wants to stay anonymous for semi-obvious reasons, and that is that their boss is one that do as I say, not as I do. Taking breaks away from the office for hours on end, handling personal business in office hours. But this boss is also a really regimented and forthright leader as far as keeping everybody else to the standards of the organization. So again, simple factor of do as I say, not as I do. And the advice that I have in this particular situation isn't really what you want to hear, but that is, you're going to have to deal with this. This is way more common in organizations than we really give it credence for. And you think back, how many great bosses have you had? Usually it's not more than 50% are great. Some of them are okay, but they all have their faults, and this happens to be your boss's fault in this case. What I want you to get in touch with, and it's a good exercise, get in touch with what your principles are for work, what your principles are for leadership. All right? This is one of those things where this prepares you as you move up the ladder, and you have to demonstrate these principles in the face of all kinds of different difficulties. It's one of the difficult things in leadership, is being able to stick to your principles in all situations. This is that practice that you're going to want to have. The other thing that I encourage you, and again, all bosses have weaknesses, but I don't want you to focus completely on the weaknesses. Make sure that you're balancing that with what their strengths are. Every boss has strengths as well. Every manager, every leader has strengths, and they have weaknesses. So make sure that you're not completely focused on one area. And hey, I get it. It may be that it's a broad area and it's 75% of what they are, but get in touch with this other aspect in those areas that you can learn from and leverage on the positive side of things as well. All right, so I have a few more questions I need to get to that I didn't get to last episode, but I wanted to dive in. I didn't want to take too much time away and dive into some of the questions that we've started getting here. So if you have any questions, struggles in leadership and management, drop them down into the comment section, and I will handle them here in probably just a couple of minutes, so almost in real time. First question comes from Israel, and it's what is leadership for sustainability? The sustainability initiatives have gotten a lot of press, and it's a good thing. It's a good thing that we're progressing to the point where we're starting to think about sustainability initiatives. What you really want to do is put a focus on it. Being a leader from a sustainability perspective in the organizations is a great chance for you to broaden your influence. So you start with simple things. That's what I tell everybody. Just when you're starting to talk about, oh, we need to focus on sustainability, I don't know where to start. Start with the most simple things. It can be recycling. And then you can dive into deeper and deeper issues. Start in your own department, all right? Get your own house in order as far as what you can do, and then look to offer your expertise to other areas. Accounting and recycling, as far as paper is concerned, is a huge aspect of things. What sort of, light bulbs, the lights that are on, all of those things as far as sustainability are concerned, you start small and then you just keep broadening it out. And as you start rolling this out, you'll get more allies, you'll get more people on board, and it tends to build some momentum. Like so many things in leadership, when you're doing the right thing for the right reasons, people get on board and you'll start building that forward. So good luck with that, Israr. And I think that's a great opportunity. If you can step in and start doing that, it's something that everybody recognizes and can really broaden that influence out. Deep has a question, and my married life is on the verge of break. She's come out of it, but she threatens to never give any separation. How do I deal with it? I'm stressed and worried about my future and unable to bear the pressure. Wish it could come out. You know what, Deep, I appreciate that. It's really more of a leadership and management discussion here as opposed to marriage counseling. My advice always is seek out experts. And for everybody out there, you're tuning in. You're seeking out somebody who can give you an outside perspective on things. And that goes for your personal life as well. So in so many areas of your personal life, if you find that you're struggling, if you find you're not reaching your potential, marriage is one of those things, then seek out somebody who you can talk to, who your wife can talk to, all those stakeholders can talk to, and can offer some outside perspective on things that can hopefully help and improve those areas of your personal life, not just your professional life. And so that would be my advice in that case. A guy has the next one, and it's how to handle when your relative and so-called friends ignore you when you're failed in your business. Guy, I would probably throw out the first thing, and that is that they aren't really your friends in the first place. Now, obviously, with relatives, this is something a little bit different. But they aren't really your friends in the first place. And what I do encourage in a lot of those cases is that this is a wake-up call for you. So when we get focused on work, when important things are happening in our professional life, huge projects, starting a business, that sort of thing. When those huge things are going on, it's important that we don't let those personal and those life aspects of the work-life balance equation completely atrophy. You look for your 80-20, opportunities where you can spend 20% of the time and get 80% of the value out of that. And that allows you to continue to invest in those friends and in those relatives so that when you fall on harder times, you aren't coming, you've already invested in that and you've continued to let that grow. And so much of a principle as far as time management is concerned is to seek that balance. But when you have to outweigh something in the professional life, then seek those 80-20 things where you're going out with drinks for friends, but it's not for 3 hours, it's for 1 hour. Maybe you don't go to the movie with your friends because you're not interacting with them. Maybe you seek opportunities where you can converse, that sort of thing. So look for those opportunities to leverage in the background. But those friends that ignore you when you're not successful are not true friends. All right, we all go through those ups and downs. I've personally gone through those ups and downs. And I was lucky to have friends there that were able to step in. And I've been able to reciprocate that as they've gone through the ups and downs in their life. And that's what you're looking for in your personal life, but you're also looking for that professionally. You're looking for those allies, those people who you can work with and learn from and are there to support you and give their thoughts on it. It may be a peer, it may be a subordinate, and hopefully it's a boss. But look for those opportunities as well. And I'm almost caught up on questions here. So if you have any questions, struggles, anything that's been bothering you this week, drop them down in the comment section. I'll handle them almost in real time here. Esther has a question in regards to 2 departments have integrated but continue to have 2 managers. Been with the company 20 years. How do you deal with negative management? Negative management and poor leadership is a challenge to you, Esther, to get in touch with those principles, those bedrock principles of why you're there. What motivates you? Is it to help the organization succeed? Is it to help your, fellow workers succeed? Is it develop the next set of leaders? Is it to, some intrinsic desire to do a good job and be excellent and reach your full potential? But it's a challenge to get in touch with those. All right. Now, what do you do in the case of poor leadership and poor management? So much of this, as far as dealing with your boss and getting your boss and your manager to do something different, is to align it with their principles and make it easy. All right, you think about your work and how much time management is an issue for you. As you move up the rungs of the ladder, there's more things that fall on your plate and you have to prioritize those, and time management becomes even more of an issue. And so where a lot of people fail in dealing with their boss and leading their boss and managing their boss is that they aren't aligning what they're talking about with things that matter to their boss, and they're not making it easy. They're adding more work to their plate. All right. When somebody comes to you, and this is why we talk about, you bring solutions to the situation. You don't bring problems to a situation. The reason is bringing a problem to a situation just adds more to an already full plate for whoever you're dealing with. Offering a solution potentially takes something that could be added later off of that plate and just makes it very easy for them. So make sure that you're in touch with why the 2 departments were integrated. What were the goals that were set for your managers or management out of bringing these 2 departments together? Then when you're going to them and talking about what they should be doing in these cases, phrase it in a way that meets those goals, and then talk through it and do your homework on ways to make it easy. In a lot of cases where you're dealing with negative management, where management isn't doing their job, these are opportunities for you to gain experience. Because what you can do is, hey, we have a problem. Sales have been down 10%. I think that if we go out with this sort of thing, we can turn those sales around. Now, I've prepared this, and I'm willing to go ahead and do this and this and this for. Okay, fine. You've given me you've identified the issue, you've aligned it with our goals, and you've provided me with the solution. And you've made it easy for me because you're not asking me to do any extra work. That's something that moves the needle forward and helps get things across the finish line and gets things going in the right direction. So dealing with negative management isn't fun. but it is something that you're going to be dealing with a lot in your career, unfortunately. And look at those things as opportunities for you to grow. Present those solutions that align with goals and are presented in an easy way for your boss to say yes to. And you'll be more apt to be able to kind of tilt those things around to what they should be doing, not just what they've been doing. Chris, glad you've liked it so far. Nilanjana, great name. When you manage team leads and being in good terms, particular to one lead, how likely is it that the frontline agents who are reporting to the same team lead will share their honest feedback about the team leads in skips? How to manage perception of your agents? And Nilanjana, a fantastic question. I love the fact that you're doing skip level meetings. And so for everybody, I'll just give you a little background on that. So instead of, if you're in a manager role and you have a bunch of supervisors underneath you, the supervisors may have one-on-one meetings with their team. Occasionally, whether it's every quarter, half yearly, whatever it is, those employees don't meet with the supervisor, they meet with you. They skip up a level. And it allows you as the manager to get a great feel for the pulse of the organization and gives you a different perspective. Those people on the front lines have great ideas and great insight that you don't necessarily see in the reports and in what happens when you stroll through the door if you're visiting a location or something like that. So having those skip level meetings is important. One thing is you really have to, I'll call it spidey sense, but you need to read the tea leaves. I'll use all kinds of analogies here, but you need to be looking for areas where this particular lead that you have a good relationship with is falling short. And so what you do to open up that conversation, Nilanjana, is to actually lead with something that you may have noticed. And it may be something that you and the lead are working on. All right, this is a great opportunity for you to kind of reinforce that the discussions that you've had with the lead. And so you fire the first shot as far as the lead is concerned. Now, as far, and I'll just kind of roll through an example on this. I appreciate, your feedback in regards to this. I did want to talk to you about Cameron. He's your supervisor, and I've been working with him on a couple of different things. I've been working up on him with his follow through, and I've been working with him as far as meeting with you more. So I wanted to kind of get your feedback on how is he doing as far as follow through? How is he doing as far as meeting with you and coaching you, and what else, how is your relationship with him? What other areas would you like to see him improve? Because I meet with him regularly, we have a good relationship, and I'm looking to build him up, but I don't want to just deal with strengths, I want to deal with weaknesses as well. And so you open that conversation, and that's one of the easiest ways to do it and get them started, is giving a couple of examples to kind of get that conversation going and get them rolling. And then how you deal with those questions will tell them whether it's okay for them to pile on and say, you know what, I don't like Cameron at all. His personality sucks. I don't care for it at all. Oh, well, thank you. How is it, we all butt heads occasionally. Is it that, or is it some particular behaviors that he's doing? So look to dive into that. Also, though, seek that balance so it's okay, because they don't want to necessarily pile on. So again, solicit those strengths that the supervisor or lead in this particular case has. But really kind of activate those things that you might be most concerned about, bring those to the forefront, and kind of lead the employee towards water as far as getting that great feedback on your lead as well. But I love the question. That's absolutely fantastic question. Chenille, good to see you here. Wanted to grow within the organization that I work for, but what can I do when leadership management does not teach best practices and share best principles? They keep certain knowledge to themselves and expect you to learn on your own. And Chenille, you're not alone in dealing with that at all. A lot of times leaders are not best at coaching those things. And so reaching out to the employees and getting best practices is one of those things that I always recommend when I'm dealing with some of my private coaching. There we are. Sorry. Had that little technical difficulty here. So dealing with those leaders that don't give you as much information as you'd like to have, requires you, it's kind of the opposite of what we just dealt with a second ago as far as looking for the clues in your supervisors below you and in your employees to bring that up. You're looking for those clues in your boss as well. So what are those things that they pay most attention to? What are those things that they're on people for? And then what you do is you share the knowledge with your fellow team members. You have those discussions, all right? Leadership doesn't have to just reside with the people that have the titles. It's imperative that leadership also extend down to those who don't have the titles as well. And this is your opportunity, if you want to grow within the organization, to start building those bridges and building up that reputation as somebody who does step up to the forefront and step into particular issues. You can put the best practices together yourself. Talk to the 3 best people on your team. You know who's generally doing a good job and who isn't. Ask them how they're doing that. But use that as an opportunity to bring those things together. But look for those clues as far as your leadership is concerned as to what they're concerned about, what they're working on, and what they're talking about. And that will help you to see where you need to be going as far as the organization is concerned. But again, interact with your team and be a leader now and develop that sort of leadership skill of bringing people together and putting together best practices. And this is something that you talk about when you move into your next leadership role or your first leadership role. I was able to pull together the best practices for my organization in this particular facet. All right, and I was able to align these with the principles by having discussions with so-and-so. And that's what's going to help you move up the ladder and move on. No, how do you manage perception from frontline workers? Thank you. And everybody out there, I'm caught up on questions here. So if you want an answer in real time, I'm here to help. I'm happy to do that. Drop down into the comments, ask those questions. We've already handled a bunch of them from around the world. So go ahead. This is your opportunity to kind of get some thoughts and get your brain working there. Nilanjana has got a follow-up, and that's how to manage perceptions where frontline agents are comfortable speaking to me about their team lead. Instead of thinking that I am close to a lead and hence may not take any action. So I'll kind of flip the question around here a little bit. So we dealt with employee reluctance to talk to you about a team lead that you might be close to or that you have a good relationship with. And another aspect of that dynamic could be that employees are more comfortable coming to you with feedback for their lead than going to the lead directly. And we deal with this a lot as far as, in your leadership role, a lot of times you'll see employees that go over your head to your boss about particular issues instead of bringing it to you. And so what this is, and certainly in the human dynamic and the personality of people, you're going to gel with certain employees. You're going to get along with certain people better than you're going to get along with other people. It's just natural. It's human nature in those cases. But what you need to do is you need to try to deflect as much as possible. And so your key question in those cases is, well, have you brought this to, I'll play the lead to your manager role. Have you brought this to Cameron's attention? Well, here's how you might do that. And so a lot of times people are uncomfortable going to certain people with things. And so what you want to do as a leader to coach them to do this so that they aren't coming to you and they're following the chain of command where it's appropriate is to actually describe to them how they should approach this particular individual in dealing with this particular situation. And so, that may look like, well, if you've got an issue with the way that he's speaking to you, he's probably coming from the right place, and tell him that. So the next time that Cameron says something, say, hey, I know you didn't mean it this way, but it just rubs me wrong when you do it this way. I'd prefer for you to do it this other way, and offer the solution on that. So you kind of give them the cheat notes on how to deal with a particular situation. And so that's a good way of trying to reestablish that relationship with between the employee and the lead so that they aren't skipping up to go to you with that feedback because they naturally get along with you better. So that would be the way that I'd tackle that particular situation. Cindy, good to see you here again. I'm in a leadership role now and I'm looking to build my team of professionals. What are some great interview questions to ask in order to determine behavioral qualities? So What you want to do, first and foremost, Cindy, is get clear on what behavioral qualities you're looking for. All right. And the best way to do that when you're looking to come up with interview questions and you're looking to hire people is look at who you already have or who you have had in the past that was fantastic. Now, what made them fantastic? Sure, they got productivity, but what led to that productivity? Were they willing to help other individuals? Were they willing to step up and do something that wasn't in their job description? Were they, willing to take on new responsibilities? Did they love change? And so that creates those, when you have those behavioral qualities, then that creates your template for the questions that you might ask. And so the classic questions to ask, or classic framing of that question is, can you tell me about a time where you stepped up and did something that wasn't in your job description to help out the organization? And somebody will come up with something. But what the key is really is the follow-up questions. Because what happens is a lot of times people will give you kind of a wishy-washy answer where they didn't really demonstrate that sort of behavior that you're looking for, but you can kind of see where they did that. So what you want to do is have follow-up questions. And it's hard to say in advance what those follow-up questions are going to be, but look to peel back the layers of the onion just a little bit and dive deeper into those things. It is also helpful to have 2 questions set aside for each of these behavioral qualities, because you may swing and miss on one of them where it just doesn't resonate. And so you might have another one where describe to me what your main job, what the main job role was that you were in. Now describe to me all of the things that were added to that over the course of your tenure. That might be another way of people that are taking on responsibilities that don't necessarily match up with what their job description is. So that might be a way to do that, but get crystal clear on the behaviors and then come up with a couple of behavioral questions to have for that. But it's really about the follow-up, Cindy. And it's tough to get into that, but have that be ready to create some sort of dialogue around those behavioral questions, and that'll help you kind of get to the root of whether somebody actually has that experience or they're just trying to make some stuff fit because they know that you're asking about it. Hope that helps, Cindy. And I love the fact that you're asking about the behavioral question, because too many people are looking for experience and not behaviors. And the experience is great, and you'd want to go over that experience that they have, but it's usually presented on the resume. So you can talk through those sort of things there, but being able to follow up with some of those behaviors and some of those things that all of your great employees that you've had or have are demonstrating, being able to match those up as well gives you a better likelihood of having a better candidate. Luke, good to see you here. Yeah, it's been a long time. I know there's no simple answer. Oh, great. But how do I go about changing the culture of team to think in terms of risk to the business in a busy factory workplace? That's a great question. What you want to do is you want to bring a focus to it. So bring a focus to it in a way that they can kind of keep track of on a regular basis, keep it alive. And so what you want to do is, this is where that whole sign goes up, where it's, days since the last workplace accident. Put up a sign like that. Damaged goods, so start tracking those sorts of things on when you have had these particular risk incidents occur. That brings more attention to it for the employee, but also make sure that you're talking about it on a regular basis. All right. What we talk about is what your employees are going to focus on. And too often we talk about it once and let it go for another month. Well, that's not going to create any focus amongst your employees at all. So try to find some way of being public with it and then weave it into your discussions a little bit. When we talk culture change, there is no quick fix. All right. I want to say that, and that's the simple answer that you're getting at. There's no quick fix for it. The answer is simple. Start talking about it. But it turns around over time, okay? And what you're looking for is you want to reward the behaviors that align with that. So when you see something that you like, talk about it, recognize it, bring it to the forefront. When you see something that you don't like, reinforce why that isn't the right behavior. Reinforce the impact to the organization of those particular things. Start talking it through, and you'll see what resonates with the team. But be ready, Luke, for this to be a discussion that it takes place over 30 days. It's going to last more than 30 days for you to get through to the team and start shifting that culture around. And this goes for any culture initiative. It's a long-term commitment. So come up with some sort of plan. I want to work the floor every day, once or twice a week, and talk through risk in a factory setting. I want to put this up, but put together a 90-day plan. And at the end of those 90 days, you will have seen that culture spin around if you work your plan. That's my advice. I want to say it is relatively simple. It's just not quick. I wish you the best with that. Thanks for the question. It's good to see you here again. Eliana, thanks. I'm glad you like it. Jonathan thinks it's a great show as usual. Appreciate that, Jonathan. Send you a PM when you have time. Not a problem, Jonathan. I'll make sure to get that anonymously on one of the other episodes that I have on there. I prefer to actually answer these in a public setting, and I'll keep the people anonymous for whatever the particular question is. But it helps me kind of elaborate more. Hey, I've written 4 books, but you know what? I don't like to type on the computer. It's always best and more engaging in this sort of setting. But I appreciate that question. Anybody else out there, if you want an anonymous question, shoot me a private message. Shoot me an email at cm@cameronmorsey.com. Very apt to keep your anonymity where you need it, because I completely understand that dynamic as well. Hi, Supriya. Good to see you here as well. I want to ask you about people who don't know what professionalism is, how to deal with unprofessionalism. And I like to take some of these questions and kind of broaden them out so that everybody who's in the audience here, you may not have somebody that's unprofessional. Likely you do have somebody that's unprofessional in your office. But so I will extend it out to one of those hot button issues right now, and that is millennials. And, the perception out there, rightly or wrongly, is that they don't know how to work in an office environment. It's really simple, Supriya. It's not fun, but it is to call out that unprofessionalism and tell them what you're talking about as far as professionalism is concerned. It can be the dress code. It can be attendance. It can be following a script as far as phone calls are concerned. It can be completing work and not leaving it till tomorrow. Whatever that unprofessional behavior is, I want you to match it with the behavior that you're really looking for. Okay? Second aspect of that, okay? It isn't just good enough to say, hey, you need to do this instead of this. You need to follow up with a why and with a reason for it. Why is it important that we have a dress code? Why is it important that you show up on time to work? Why is it important that you complete your work and don't leave it for the next day? In most of these cases, you're going to have a very obvious why, a very good reason why that particular behavior needs to take place. Okay? If you don't have an obvious one, give it some thought. There's usually something that's there. All right? One thing I will throw out there, though, it may be that this is something that can be adjusted and changed. Your team loves it when you take their feedback in regards to something and run with it. And when you take away a rule, a policy, a restriction that doesn't make sense anymore, then that's something that they appreciate and they recognize that, and they're more apt to give you more feedback. So to correct unprofessional behavior, you call it out. You identify the behavior they should have been doing. You identify why it is important, and you continue to do that. In this case, and I'll go back to what Luke was talking about, it takes time. It takes time to change behavior, culture. These are big things that are ingrained. You need to institute a new habit. And so you need to be ready, Supriya, to talk through this 2, 3, 4 times. A lot of employees, and it goes almost to human nature in being kind of childlike, but we all do it, including mature adults do it as well. You almost play chicken with somebody that's giving you criticism on something. If it's really important, they'll keep talking about it. But a lot of times, if you do the particular behavior 2, 3 times, the person gets tired, and then you can continue doing whatever you want. You need to be consistent, and you need to be in it for the long haul. And that's something that can turn that unprofessional behavior around to professional behavior. But stay on top of it. I appreciate the question, Supriya. That's a great one, and one that we deal with a lot in the current environment right now, where things have gotten a little bit more casual. And as people have come together, those relationships create some unprofessional things because they are friends outside of work as well. Neil and John, I appreciate that you like the view. I would like to discuss about one more HR who is instead bridging gaps and de-escalating situations, usually tends to highlight and escalate situations to the super boss. Yes, he is not solution-centric. I would need your help on how to handle this kind of HR-related issue. So one of the things when people start jumping over you, all right, and again, this is something, if it happens to you, don't feel bad. It happens to every leader that's out there. Your employees will sometimes jump over you to your boss, or they'll jump over you to HR. And this is where you need to make sure that you are investing in your relationship with your boss. You're investing in your relationship with HR. The first person that gets to HR is the story they're more apt to believe. All right, so if you just had a very uncomfortable and difficult conversation with an employee, it's usually good to bring your boss into the loop or to bring the HR contact into the loop on those things. I know it is more work for you, but it is one of those things that cuts out a lot of work down the road. All right, if you want your boss, your super boss in this case, I love that, or your HR contact to be on your side on these sorts of things to ensure that they're seeing both sides of the equation. I want them to see one side or the other. I want them to see both sides. But it's important that you establish and work on that relationship. So where you see issues, make sure you're talking it through with HR. Make sure you're talking it through with your boss so that when those situations escalate and blow up when they aren't needed, your contact is already aware of it and is more apt to be able to de-escalate it down as opposed to escalate it because it's the first time that they're hearing about it. So look to keep those people in the loop, especially HR. If you've got people that are interested in jumping over your head and running to HR, that's one great way of dealing with it. Gene has the next question, and it's, do you have any advice on how to get a team where everyone's eat their lunch at their desk to actually unplug, step away, and refresh? I love that you're asking this question, Gene. So important for you, for everybody out there to do this. They just aren't open to the idea, even though they admit knowing it would be best for them, and I believe best for the team morale. Gene, you've identified it already. What I'd look to do is I'd look to set aside a place. Maybe it is if you have a break room, it's a table in the break room that's set aside for your department. It could be that you do a meeting room occasionally when the meeting room is open so that everybody can get up from their desk and go over to a place that is set aside for them. It highlights a little bit of extra importance, all right, and doubles down on it. You can't be heavy-handed in a case like this. Everybody recognizes it, all right? Everybody knows it. All right. I would rather you take less of a lunch, 20 minutes instead of 30 minutes, and actually unplug as opposed to taking a 30-minute lunch at your desk. You'd be more productive. In almost every case, you would be more productive. So you can be firm with people on these. You're forcing them to take a break. Love that your team is that kind of gung-ho with it. But really look to set aside a place for them, and that highlights a little bit of extra importance, and hopefully that's the little push to get them out the door. We've talked a lot about behaviors in this. We've talked a lot about culture in this particular session, and this is another area where it's going to take a little bit of a push from you to break the habit that they currently have and replace it with another habit. All right? They say that it takes 21 days to create a new habit. It, depending on the study, takes much longer than that actually. But you can at least break that habit in 21 days. So this is something you're looking to focus on for 3-4 weeks at minimum. Okay? And it may be that you don't do it every day to start out with. It may be that just once a day or once a week, you're pulling them away and into a conference room or in the break room once a day. And then next week, it's twice a week. Sorry, well, not once a day, once a week. Then it's twice a week. Then it's 3 times a week. And maybe it becomes to a point where it only is 3 or 4 times a week that you're looking for people to work away from their desk. That may be the balance that you see there. But put a little extra importance, put a little place so that they can break away, and then also reinforce that and be ready for the long haul, and maybe a little compromise too, Gene. Love that. I want to say that's a really good problem to have, and I love that you've identified it and that they've identified it as well. Cindy, I'm glad you like that thought in regards to that situation. Nikhil has our next question, and it's what to do in a situation where manager has already decided whom to promote and highlight. Manager is frequently appreciating an employee even in situations where employee made a mistake and then overworked to cover that mistake. It's a difficult situation to be in Nikhil. First, I'll take the nice approach to it, and that is, what can you learn from that particular employee that has now become the chosen one, shall we say? What did they do to become the chosen one? Did they step up? Did they kiss the manager's butt? That's a very routine one, where the manager basically has a pet, not an employee, and that pet gets preferential treatment. What did they do? Now, it doesn't mean that you have to kiss the butt of your manager to get a promotion, but maybe there are ways to keep them in the loop on things. Maybe there is stuff that they like to hear about more. A lot of bosses love to hear about successes and don't want to hear about problems. That can be something that can be a switch for you. But if you're looking to continue to move on in the organization, you look to learn with how that employee got chosen for that. What I will caution and what I will say is oftentimes there is a very real reason that they were, and it's just gone unnoticed to you. It may be that they worked on a project that nobody else was aware of that the boss gave them. It may be that they have some experience that you aren't aware of, or they don't get to talk about in their current role that the boss is aware of. Don't discount the fact that there may be a very valid reason for that. Now, the second not so fun way of dealing with this is there are two reasons to leave a job. You aren't learning and growing in your overall career development, and you don't have the ability to move up in the organization, if that's what you're looking to do. All right. So if you're not learning and you don't have the opportunity to grow, then you owe it to yourself to look to move elsewhere. Okay. So if this is a case where the manager is picking and already deciding and you don't have the ability to move up, you need to look to move on instead of moving up. Now, that can be moving laterally within the organization to a department, to a manager that will recognize and will develop you as a leader to move up in the organization. But in the case of where they have handpicked their employees, look to learn where you can, but it's one of those frustrations. Again, this will be a message that goes out constantly in this particular session. All managers, you included, have weaknesses and have strengths. They'll have soft spots and they'll have hard spots. All right? Be sure that you're not just solely focused on the bad part of the manager that you can cover up for and you can help deal with, and that you're focusing on the good as well. So look to handle things neutrally. Look to make a very rational, smart decision. Emotionally, it's difficult to deal with that, chosen one. It's obnoxious. And it's poor leadership if it's not the leader has not demonstrated or been able to demonstrate why that particular person is getting preferential treatment. But you owe it to yourself to consider it rationally and see whether you need to move on from that particular position. Not advice I like to give, Nikhil, but it's just real. Don, good to see you here again. Amandeep, good to see you as well. Appreciate it. 90 play down is a good idea. Yeah, and I'm keeping well, Luke. I'm glad to see you here and glad to see you're doing well as well. Jonathan has the next one. Okay, so here's my question. It's on work attitude. I always try to establish good relationships and be objective in conflict. Great. But how do you deal with difficult characters? People that you feel you cannot trust either because they are only interested in showcasing themselves or because they do not respect you. And all this leads you to fight or flight every time. Great question. And a good, I want to say good struggle to have. A regular struggle, and I got a couple of good thoughts on it. So in dealing, I'm going to handle a couple of specifics here, okay? In dealing with respect, one of the most important things that you can do as a leader to gain respect and to gain the trust of your team is to explain the reason behind your actions, the reason behind your decisions, the reason behind what you're asking them to do. There is a valid reason, otherwise you wouldn't be taking that particular course of actions. So show them why it's important and why it ties into the goals of the organization and the department. And it can be as simple, I know from a timing perspective it's hard to get into those conversations, but it can be as simple as a sentence fragment. I need you to take out the trash because the vice president is going to be visiting in 30 minutes and we want the place looking spick and span. Nobody wants to be told to take the trash out. Janitors don't want to be told to take the trash out. But now I know that it's because there's somebody coming that I'm being asked to do that. Giving that simple sentence fragment, we want you to be upselling because that's one of the key drivers of increasing sales. And it's one of the key drivers to opening up a conversation with the customer that can lead to even more. And so just give that because behind it. That helps with respect. When somebody has that attitude, when they're showcasing themselves, or when they think that they are better than they are, it's important to highlight hard metrics. Wherever possible, hold them accountable to hard metrics. Show them where they fit in the organization. If you got 20 salespeople and the person that's in 10th place thinks that they're, hot stuff, tell them, hey, your sales for this, for this quarter are meeting expectations. We're on a good pace with that. I just want you to know you're in 10th place as far as our 20 salespeople. Hard metrics are things that they can't move away from as much. And where they can move away from it, and they'll bring up some soft skills. And well, I've been doing this and I've been doing that. You can likely, Jonathan, anticipate those particular things and have your rebuttal ready. It takes a little bit of extra prep, but you likely know what you're stepping into when you step into these conflict situations. There will be people, and call it 10%, call it 5%, call it 15%, that you will just not mesh with from a personality perspective. There are going to be 5, 10, 15% of your team that no matter how great of a boss you are, they are not going to like you. And that's just the hard reality of dealing with human beings. And in those cases, make sure this is where that why comes in as far as respect. You're giving that why. But in those cases where you don't get along with individuals, don't try to massage the situation. Just be very matter of fact, be very even keel with it. This is what I want. This is what we need. This is why it's important. And we need to look for ways to improve it. Look to get involved with them. What you don't want to do is with people that you don't necessarily, that are difficult to deal with, don't make the classic mistake, and that is separating yourself from them. If anything, you want to lean into them more. You can be factual and more transparent with them, but make sure you're still leaning into that relationship so it doesn't get worse. It may never be great, and you will not get along with or have fun dealing with every single one of your employees. If you do, great, enjoy those moments because it won't last forever. But this is a situation where if you lean into it, you can at least maintain a civil relationship with them. I hope that was able to get to some of that. I know that's kind of a broad question. I gave you a few different things there. Let me know. You can PM me or follow up in the comments down below if you need a little bit of follow up on that. But I hope that was helpful, Jonathan. Great question. Eliana, thanks. Glad you liked it. Sorry. Scrolling on the feed here is sometimes an interesting endeavor. It's not letting me go down. There we go. There we go. Andre's got the next question. Thank you. Appreciate you dealing with me scrolling through all the questions here. What should my strategy be if I am a new manager? Say first 3 months and then long term. Great. One of my favorite questions to get, Andre. If you are a new manager, and many of my regular viewers will know what I'm about to say here. If you're a new manager, one of the first things that you want to do is you want to pull every single team member in and you want to ask them 5 questions. What do you see going right in the organization right now? What do you see going wrong in the organization right now? Where are there opportunities we need to take advantage of? Where are there problems we need to fix? And how can I help you do your job better? 5 simple questions, Andre. Ask every single employee that you have those questions. And your strategy, quite frankly, will probably be laid out for you based on the feedback that you get. Your team is already up to speed on what's going on. Your team, in a lot of cases, has already seen the failed projects and the successful projects of the past. They are your key to getting up to speed as quickly as possible. I recommend to new leaders that you ask those questions in the first week that you step on the job because that lays out the groundwork for what you want. Now, the other follow-up with that is to ask your boss at least something similar to those same questions. Make sure that you are aligned with what exactly it is that your manager wants from you. Do they want increased sales? Do they want a great customer, culture, customer-focused culture? Do they want the team to be developed? Do they want costs to be down? What is it that they are focused on? Make sure you're crystal clear on that. The way that you get crystal clear on that is you ask them, and then you follow up and ask them again a week, two weeks from now. Hey, you mentioned that cost controls is one of the primary focuses for you in this coming year. I just wanted to read, are there any other focuses that you have in the coming year that I can help with? All right, you're in that position where you're new. So asking what seems to be, somewhat stupid, or you might be uncomfortable asking a question like that 2 years down the road, are very easy questions where that makes sense. Thank you for asking that question is what's going through the back of your boss's head. Okay, we don't want to make any missteps on that. But those 5 questions, and again, I'll throw them out there. What do you see going right in the organization right now? What do you see going wrong? Where are there opportunities we need to take advantage of? Where are there problems we need to fix? And how can I help you do a better job? That will lay out your course and your strategy for your particular organization better than almost anything else. Andre has another one. Good. Employee and business-wise, should I first win the employee trust short-term and then build from there? I want to say yes, but I'm kind of thinking it through here just a little bit. Yes, they're concerned. I mean, you think back to your times when you have a new boss. Okay, well, what are they going to do? What are they going to change? Those are the things you're most concerned about, and how am I going to fit into that? So, as I mentioned, those 5 questions opens up that conversation a little bit more. Now, the trust is a great place to start because it speeds everything else along. It helps you drive forward with what you need to get done. And it's the bedrock of a good employee foundation. The way that you build that trust is by taking action on that feedback that you give and making sure that you're describing to everybody the reasons behind those actions that you're taking. And that's kind of the key to kind of getting those things rolling. But hope that helps for you as well, Andre. Congratulations on the new position. Love that you got the new spot and that you're asking the questions about it. Sweet, it's good to see you here. It's been a while. And Rosh, I'm glad you like that particular advice as well. So I am actually caught up. So if you have some questions, I'm going to give you just a second. Drop down into the comment section here, and I will answer that question in real time. In the meantime, I do have my notes here on questions I didn't get a chance to get to. And that is question, it almost gets into one of the things that we dealt with as far as a boss who has that do what I say, not what I do aspect, and that is a boss that's comfortable with the status quo. And bless your heart for being concerned about moving the operation forward. And for a lot of you out there, you have that leadership that isn't interested in as much change and is very comfortable with what's going on there. And so one of the things that you want to make sure that you do when you're looking to change, most people fear change. It's hardwired into our brain, our psychology, that change is risk. And so it's not uncommon to face this. One of the most important things that you do is you do your homework in regards to whatever it is that you want to change in the organization. Whatever it is, put together the project plan, put together the projections, put together the training schedule. Do your homework. Okay, that gives them as much of a picture and takes away their fear of the unknown. Change is unknown. And so the more you can fill that gap with information, the less fear that they're going to have about that change. The second thing is make it easy. Okay, so you conquer that knowledge gap and that fear of the unknown for them. The second thing that you want to do is you want to make it easy. Those that are comfortable with the status quo aren't necessarily the ones that are the biggest go-getters out there. They're not apt to take on new projects. They're not apt to take on new things because that means new work, more work than they already have. So make it easy. Volunteer to do the presentation that you need to with, senior leadership if you need a project approved. volunteer to do the training, volunteer to mentor somebody in a particular aspect, volunteer to create the sheet, volunteer those things. This gives you leadership experience, gives you exposure in the organization, and just helps develop you in these roles. Again, this is one of those things where you take something that's a negative and you turn it into a positive that helps you grow in your role. Which is such a key, and one of those shortcuts as far as a career is concerned is looking for those opportunities where you can develop some experience in a negative situation. The last thing that I want to mention, and it goes back to some of the things as far as managing your boss, is make sure that it's aligned with the goals of the organization. Okay? Otherwise, they'll just tune it out. I don't care if you've given me all the information and if you're volunteering to do the work. There's a cost that's associated with everything. And if it's not aligned with increasing sales, decreasing costs, better customer service, that sort of thing, if it's not tied to those big goals, it's not something they're going to be apt to approve and look to roll with. And so one of the most important things that you can do is show how what it is that you're looking to change improves and aligns with those things. Okay, so do your homework, fill the knowledge gap. When you've got a leadership that isn't interested in changing and is happy with the status quo and you want to look to improve things, do that homework, make it easy for them, volunteer to do that work, and make sure that it's aligned with the goals of the organization, and you'll be more apt to see your proposals actually get approved and some of those things changing in the positive direction. But love that question as well. All right, everybody, I'm gonna sign off for now. Look for me to pop in tomorrow. Look to do a session probably in the morning Pacific Standard Time. Otherwise, if you have questions, shoot them through me through private message. CM at Cameron Morrissey is a great one. Or if you're coming to this late, just drop down into the comment section and add it there. I usually check the prior posts and Facebook Live sessions to see if there's anything that I missed. But appreciate all of you out there, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.